Hello, fellow gardeners. Every year it's the exact same routine. Windowsills crammed with dozens of little starter cups, dirt scattered across the table, and hours spent carefully moving those tiny, delicate seedlings. I'm talking, of course, about transplanting your starts, or what we often call potting up. But what if I told you that you could grow a massive amount of strong, healthy pepper seedlings while completely skipping that exhausting process? Many people believe that without the painstaking task of repotting, you just won't get a decent harvest. But today, I'm going to bust that myth wide open and share our family's method, the one we affectionately call the lazy gardener's way. Trust me, the results are absolutely stunning. You'll see how minimum effort translates into maximum strong, sturdy plants that are ready to go straight into the garden, ready to learn the secret. Then stick around and watch carefully until the very end. First, let's quickly cover why we traditionally transplant seedlings. There are a few standard reasons. First, it gives each plant more room to develop. Second, it's widely believed that pinching the taproot during this process stimulates the growth of stronger lateral roots, resulting in a more fibrous and robust root system. And third, it's a perfect opportunity to cool the weak or sick starts. Sounds logical, right? Well, there's a flip side, especially when it comes to peppers. Unlike resilient tomatoes, peppers are incredibly fussy and sensitive. Their root system is very fragile and handles damage poorly. Transplanting is always a huge source of stress for them. The plant literally stalls its growth, sometimes for a full week or even two, just trying to recover. That is precious time that we simply lose. Our method, however, is built on a totally different core principle. Don't stress the plant out in the first place. So, the first pillar of our method is avoiding root shock or root trauma. We operate on the premise that nature simply knows best. Peppers have a taproot system, and the main root instinctively wants to drive deep into the soil to extract water and nutrients from the lower layers. By severing this taproot, we force the plant to completely override its natural genetic programming. Instead, we create conditions for the root system to develop naturally and harmoniously right from the very beginning. Think about it. In the wild, no one is pricking out seedlings. They simply thrive exactly where the seed happened to fall. Our goal is to mimic these perfect natural conditions, but within a controlled indoor environment. This means we need to give every future pepper plant enough space and sufficient nutrition right from day one. That way, the seedling doesn't have to compete with its neighbours or struggle for survival. It's this specific strategy that allows us to avoid stunted growth and ultimately achieve stronger, more robust plants in a much shorter time frame. On screen now, you can see the root system of a pepper, grown entirely without the standard pricking out method. It is powerful, dense, and penetrates deep into the soil. The second crucial factor is choosing the right varieties. And yes, not all peppers will react well to the direct sow or no transplant method. The best options for this technique are determinate and standard, or bush, varieties. These are usually compact, lower-growing plants that don't require complex pruning or shaping, and they maintain more restrained growth in the early stages. They won't stretch out too much or crowd each other in the shared container. Look for varieties specifically labelled as compact or bushy. However, you need to be careful with tall, indeterminate hybrids, the kind that can easily reach 6 or 7 feet in a greenhouse. They have massive growing vigour and might start suppressing their neighbours even at the seedling stage. While this method can work for them, it requires slightly wider spacing when planting and much more careful monitoring. So, the next time you are choosing seeds, make sure you read the packet description, not just for the potential yield, but also for the specific plant type. The next step, and one that many people overlook, is pre-sowing seed preparation. You can't just grab seeds straight out of the packet and toss them into the soil, hoping for the best. We're aiming for a 100% success rate, which means we need to help those seeds wake up and ensure they are sanitized. First, we perform calibration, sometimes called grading. Drop the seeds into a glass of slightly salted water, about 1 teaspoon of salt per glass. Anything that floats after 10 or 15 minutes should be thrown out immediately. Those are duds. The ones that sink to the bottom are our gold standard seeds. Rinse them thoroughly with clean water, and then we move on to disinfection. You can use the tried and true method, a pale pink solution of potassium permanganate, and soak the seeds for 20 minutes. Alternatively, use modern biopesticides, such as phytosporin, following the package directions. After disinfection, I strongly recommend soaking the seeds in a growth stimulant. This could be epin, zircon, or even aloe vera juice diluted 50-50 with water. Leave them on a moist cotton pad or paper towel in a warm place for about 24 hours. When you see the seeds swell up, you know they are viable and ready to grow. Now let's move on to the single most crucial factor, the potting mix or substrate. This is truly the bedrock of your seedling's health. Since we're using the no pricking out method, the plant will remain in this specific mix for its entire initial growth phase, about 2 months. That means the soil needs to be more than just loose. It must be nutrient dense, perfectly balanced, and teeming with beneficial life. Forget using pure store-bought potting soil. In most cases, these bags are nothing more than peat moss bulked up with mineral fillers. They dry out instantly and severely lack the essential beneficial microflora we need. We prepare our own custom blend, and here is the recipe. First, take 2 parts of high-quality garden soil or loamy forest earth. Make sure this is sterilised beforehand by baking it in the oven. Next, add 1 part well-aged compost or high-quality humus. This provides our primary nutrition. Then, 1 part neutralised peat moss or quaya for superior aeration and water retention, and 1 part wash river sand or perlite. This is key to preventing compaction and ensuring optimal airflow to the roots. Finally, for every 5-gallon bucket of this mixture, I always incorporate 1 cup of wood ash. This not only serves as a great antiseptic, but is also a vital source of potassium, phosphorus, and dozens of beneficial trace elements. Why do we insist so strongly on making our own potting mix? Let's take a closer look. As I've mentioned before, the standard store-bought soil is usually nothing more than high moor peat moss. It's highly acidic, which is far from ideal for peppers. Even if the packaging claims it's been neutralised, the soil structure remains poor. It lacks the essential humus and beneficial soil bacteria that help your plants efficiently absorb nutrients. Our homemade mix, however, is a complete ecosystem. Garden soil introduces the established microflora that plants are naturally accustomed to. Compost or aged manure provides a slow-release source of organic nutrition, breaking down gradually as your seedlings grow. Adding sand or perlite creates the perfect airy structure, preventing the roots from suffocating. And wood ash not only provides valuable nutrients, but also protects against dangerous fungal diseases, particularly damping off. By thoroughly mixing all these components, you get a living, breathable, and highly nutritious substrate where your pepper seedlings will truly feel like they are thriving at a luxury resort. Trust me, the difference compared to using standard store-bought soil will be absolutely colossal. Now let's talk about the growing containers. Since we are skipping the pricking out stage, we don't need a bunch of small, individual pots. Instead, we need 1 large, communal space, a shared apartment, if you will, for all our pepper seedlings. Shallow yet wide plastic flats or containers are perfect for this method. The depth should be at least 10 centimetres, but 12 is even better. This ensures the root system has ample room to develop deeply during the first 2 months of the plant's life. The width and length will depend entirely on how many seedlings you plan to grow, but here is the most crucial rule. The container absolutely must have drainage holes in the bottom. If your container doesn't have them, you must make them yourself, either with a hot nail or a drill. Stagnant water is the biggest enemy of pepper seedlings. The roots quickly suffocate and rot, leading inevitably to the plant's death. Before filling the tray with potting mix, you should wash it thoroughly and treat it with a disinfectant, such as a mild potassium, permanganate, or diluted bleach solution. This will kill any lingering pathogenic spores that might have survived from last season. This simple, preventative step is your best insurance against disease. Preparing our seedling containers is almost a ritual in itself. First, in the bottom of the container, the one with proper drainage holes, we must lay a layer of drainage material, roughly 1 to 1.5 centimetres deep. For drainage, you can use fine clay pebbles, crushed brick or stone, or even small pieces of crumbled styrofoam. This creates an essential air gap, which keeps the roots from sitting in standing water. Next, we add our prepared, nutrient-rich potting mix right on top of the drainage. But hold on, don't fill it all the way. We need to leave about 2 to 3 centimetres of free space below the rim of the tray. This space is vital because if the seedlings start to get a little leggy later on, we'll have room to easily add more soil to support them. As we add the soil, lightly firm it with your palm to remove large air pockets, but absolutely do not pack it down hard. The goal is to keep the mix loose and well aerated. Following this, we thoroughly water the soil using hot water mixed with either a very weak, pale pink solution of potassium permanganate or a solution of phytosporin. This dual step both sterilises the soil, killing off any remaining pests, and warms the substrate. This warm, clean environment is exactly what heat-loving plants like peppers need to thrive. Once the soil in the tray has cooled to room temperature, we move on to the most crucial step, sowing the seeds. And here we employ a little trick of our own, precise marking. Since the seedlings will be staying in this container for quite a while, we need to immediately allocate them their own personal space. We take a standard ruler or a thin wooden slat and make shallow furrows in the soil, about 1 centimetre deep. The distance between these furrows should be 5 to 6 centimetres. This spacing will be enough to prevent the plants from shading each other out. Now for the most important part, the spacing within the row itself. We use tweezers to carefully place our pre-soaked and treated seeds into these furrows. This technique allows us to work very neatly and precisely. The distance between the individual seeds in the row should be at least 4 to 5 centimetres. Yes, this might seem like a waste of space, but this is exactly where the secret lies. With this planting layout, every single plant will have enough light and sufficient nutrient area for the entire growth period before they are transplanted into the garden. They won't compete with each other or stretch out trying to fight for the sun. Once all the seeds are carefully placed in position, the next step is to cover them with soil. It's highly recommended not to use the same potting mix from the tray. Instead, you should use a light, specialised mixture, either equal parts sifted compost and sand, or simply use some finely sifted potting soil. This covering layer should be no more than 1 centimetre thick. If you bury the pepper seeds too deeply, they might take a very long time to germinate, or they may not sprout at all. Gently firm the soil surface with your palm to ensure the seeds have tight contact with the earth. Now pay close attention. This is a critical step. After covering the seeds, do not water the soil using a traditional watering can. Watering from above can easily wash away the top layer and bury the seeds too deep. Instead, we are going to generously mist the entire surface using a spray bottle filled with warm, settled water. The water must thoroughly soak that top centimetre of soil, but we must avoid creating a swamp or waterlogged conditions. This careful procedure keeps the soil loose and friable, ensuring our seeds remain exactly where we place them. This guarantees uniform and robust germination. For our seeds to germinate quickly and uniformly, we need to create a greenhouse effect. To achieve this, we cover the container with glass or seal it tightly with plastic wrap. This creates a miniature greenhouse environment inside, providing the high humidity and stable temperature essential for pepper seed germination. Make sure the plastic film adheres snugly to the edges of the container, ensuring there are no gaps. Once sealed, place this incubator in the warmest spot in your home. The ideal temperature range for pepper germination is 25 to 28 degrees Celsius. This might be near a heating radiator, or perhaps on the top shelf of a kitchen cabinet where the air is generally warmer. Light is not necessary at this stage, so avoid placing the container on a windowsill for now. Each day, you must briefly remove the plastic wrap for a couple of minutes to air out the seeds and eliminate condensation. Failing to do this can lead to the formation of mold. By maintaining this temperature regime, you should see the first tiny seedlings emerge in as little as 5 to 7 days. The moment you spot those first tiny loops of sprouts, don't wait for the rest to catch up. Immediately remove the plastic dome or film and move the entire tray to the brightest location in your house. This is a critically important stage. For the first 3 to 4 days after emergence, your pepper seedlings require round-the-clock light. This is essential to prevent them from stretching or becoming leggy, and ensures they develop into stocky, robust plants. Ideally, you should be using a dedicated grow light. Run it continuously, both day and night. If you don't have a specialised lamp, place the tray on your brightest south-facing windowsill and supplement the light with a standard fluorescent or LED shop light. Simultaneously with increasing the light, you must drop the temperature. The optimal temperature during this critical period is 16 to 18 degrees Celsius during the day, dropping to about 14 degrees Celsius at night. This rapid temperature drop will effectively harden off the seedlings. This Spartan regime of intense light and cool temperatures will prevent the sprouts from getting too tall and establish a solid foundation for the plant's future health. After 3 or 4 days, you can transition them back to your normal growing routine. Once your seedlings have strengthened slightly, it's time to transition them to the standard light and temperature regime. They now require a photo period lasting 12 to 14 hours a day. Regular light on a windowsill, especially during February or March, simply won't cut it. Therefore, using a dedicated grow light or even just a simple cool spectrum LED bulb is essential. Position the lamp about 15 to 20 centimeters above the tops of the plants. You will need to raise the lamp continually as the seedlings grow. During the day, maintain temperatures between 23 and 25 degrees Celsius and then drop them to around 18 degrees at night. These daily temperature fluctuations mimic natural growing conditions and are extremely beneficial for pepper plants. Don't forget to regularly rotate your container so that the plants grow straight, and don't lean excessively toward the light source. Providing adequate light is the key to ensuring your seedlings don't become long and weak or leggy. Instead, they will grow stocky, featuring short internodes and a thick, sturdy stem. Watering pepper seedlings is an absolute art form. The golden rule here is simple. It's much better to underwater than to overwater. Peppers absolutely cannot stand soggy conditions or having their roots sitting in a swamp. You should only water the seedlings once the top layer of soil has dried out to about a ½ inch depth. Checking is easy. Just use the finger test. Always use room temperature, settled water for irrigation, but ideally you should use rainwater or melted snow water. Cold water straight from the tap will shock those delicate roots. When you water, do it very carefully, directing the water right at the base and trying your best not to splash the leaves. It's easiest to apply the water using a small watering can with a thin spout, a bulb syringe, or even a large syringe without the needle. Watering is best done in the morning. This gives the moisture time to absorb fully so the plants don't go into the evening with wet feet, which significantly lowers the risk of fungal diseases. Finally, keep in mind that with our method, the soil volume is quite large, meaning it dries out slower than it would in smaller cups. Therefore, you need to water less often, but when you do, water thoroughly to ensure the entire root ball is saturated. Our peppers have been living in the same container for quite some time now, so they're definitely going to need a nutritional boost. But hold off on reaching for those chemical fertilizers just yet. At this fragile seedling stage, we should stick to gentle, organic feeds. We apply the first feeding when the plants develop 2 to 3 true leaves. Wood ash infusion is perfect for this. It's simple to prepare. Just mix 1 tablespoon of ash into a litre of boiling water. Let it steep for 24 hours, strain it, and then water the plants directly at the base. This will give them the necessary potassium and phosphorus needed for robust root development. We can follow up with the second feeding about 2 weeks later. For this, a liquid worm casting tea works wonderfully, or you can use any other liquid organic fertilizer. If you do, follow the instructions, but it's best to halve the recommended concentration. It's crucial to remember that you should only apply fertilizer to damp soil after the initial watering, so you don't risk burning the delicate roots. This gentle feeding routine will be plenty for our seedlings until they are ready to be transplanted outside, as they already have the core nutrients locked into our existing rich potting mix. One of the most common questions we get is, do I need to loosen the soil in my seed starting tray? The answer is a resounding yes. Absolutely. Just like us, pepper roots need to breathe. Over time, especially after repeated watering, the surface of the soil can compact and form a hard crust. This crust effectively blocks essential oxygen from reaching the roots, and we absolutely cannot let that happen. That's why, about once a week, ideally the day after watering when the soil is still slightly damp, you should gently break up the surface. You can use a simple tool for this, like a wooden skewer, an old kitchen fork, or a specialised mini cultivator. When you do this, only work the soil between the rows and go no deeper than 1 or 2 centimetres. You must be extremely cautious not to nick the delicate feeder roots near the surface of your plants. This simple routine doesn't just improve soil aeration, it also helps tackle any rogue weed seeds that may have accidentally found their way into your potting mix. Regular tilling is like giving your root system a much-needed deep breath. It stimulates vigorous growth, resulting in stronger, healthier seedlings. About 2 weeks before you plan to move the seedlings into the greenhouse or garden beds, we begin a crucial process called hardening off. Our pepper plants have spent their entire lives in comfortable indoor conditions, and a sudden change in environment could be devastating for them. That's why we need to introduce them to outdoor life gradually. On the first day, take the tray of seedlings out onto a balcony or into a greenhouse for 1 to 2 hours. Make sure they are placed in a spot protected from direct sunlight and strong drafts. The next day, increase their time outdoors to 3 or 4 hours. We continue this routine daily, gradually extending these walks. We also slowly acclimate the plants to direct sunlight, starting with just 15 to 20 minutes per day. After about a week, the seedlings can generally be left outside all day long. Then, a few days before final transplanting, you can start leaving them out overnight, provided there is absolutely no threat of frost. Hardening off makes the plants much tougher, increasing their resilience to temperature fluctuations and UV light. Unhardened seedlings, when moved out, often suffer from sun scald and can stop growing for a prolonged period. The exciting moment has arrived, transplanting our mature, hardened seedlings into their final home. By now, the plants are typically 60 to 70 days old, boasting 6 to 8 true leaves, and some are even starting to form their first buds. This is precisely where our no-pricking method shines, revealing its key advantage. A day before transplanting, we thoroughly water the soil in the trays. This ensures the dirt is moist and holds together well. Then, using a small trowel or scoop, we carefully cut out each plant with a generous root ball. It lifts out just like a slice of cake. Because we space them generously from the start, their root systems have hardly intertwined. Each seedling is extracted with its own large, perfectly intact clump of soil. The roots suffer absolutely no trauma during this process. The plant doesn't even notice it's been moved. It avoids transplant shock, doesn't wilt or stunt its development. Instead, it immediately starts establishing itself in its new home and takes off growing. Let's compare the results. On the left, you can see the seedlings we grew using our lazy approach. Notice those thick, sturdy stems, the short internodes, and the deep, dark green leaves. Now check out the root system after we pulled it from the tray. It's a powerful, intact root ball that has grown deep and strong. On the right side is the classic seedling, the one that went through the standard pricking out and transplanting process. It might look decent, but it's often a bit leggier, and when you eventually plant it out, those roots are still inevitably damaged. But the crucial difference will become obvious once they are planted in the garden bed. Our stress-free peppers will easily outpace their transplanted counterparts in development by at least 1, if not 2, full weeks. They will bloom sooner and, as a direct result, start producing fruit much earlier. This means we didn't just save a ton of time and effort during the seedling stage, we also secured an earlier and far more abundant harvest. That right there is the beauty and effectiveness of our entire method. Now, many people might argue that this method wastes valuable windowsill space because one large tray takes up more room than individual pots nested closely together. At first glance, that seems true, but let's crunch the numbers. A standard tray, roughly 40 by 60 centimetres, can comfortably hold between 60 and 70 plants using this system. To house that many seedlings in separate pots, you would need roughly the same amount of surface area anyway. However, our method completely eliminates the need to buy or make all those individual pots, label every single one, and most importantly, it bypasses the laborious and time-consuming process of pricking out and potting up. You sow your seeds once, and then you care for the entire group simultaneously. This is a huge time saver, especially for anyone growing large batches of starts or seedlings. And as any serious gardener knows, time is the most precious resource, especially in the spring when your to-do list is already overflowing. Therefore, the perceived waste of space is more than justified by the sheer convenience and simplicity of the approach. To wrap things up, let's quickly recap the 5 key advantages of our method for growing peppers without the need for potting on or transplanting. First and most important, it guarantees zero stress for your plants. Because the root system is never damaged or disturbed, the seedlings develop continuously without any developmental setbacks or delays. Second, you save yourself significant time and effort. This method eliminates the most fiddly and labour-intensive part of the entire process, handling and relocating dozens of tiny seedlings. Third, you end up with stronger, much healthier pepper plants that have a robust and naturally developed root structure. Fourth, these robust plants establish themselves quicker once moved outside and enter the fruiting stage earlier, which naturally results in a much earlier harvest. And finally, fifth, the sheer simplicity of the method. It requires no special skills, expensive tools, or complicated setups. All you truly need is the right soil mix, a suitable container, and following our straightforward recommendations. Try this approach just once, and we are confident you will never go back to the traditional way of potting on your peppers. So, everyone, today we took a deep dive into our method for growing robust pepper seedlings without the constant hassle of transplanting or pricking them out. As you can see, the secret isn't some kind of magic trick, but a straightforward and logical approach, giving your plants perfect conditions right from the start and simply letting them develop naturally, undisturbed. The right soil mix, adequate space, proper sowing technique, and diligent care. That's all it takes to get magnificent, healthy peppers that will reward you with a generous harvest. We've proven that you can step away from traditional methods and still get even better results, all while saving yourself a ton of time and stress. I truly hope you found this video helpful and that you'll definitely give our method a try next season. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching until the very end. If you liked what you saw, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our new gardening tips and tricks. Now, a question for you. Do you still prick out your pepper seedlings? Or do you have your own lazy gardener's hack method? Share your experience in the comments below. We'd genuinely love to read about it. Until next time.